So chapter 4 is titled Transcendental Knowledge, also known as Gyan Yoga, and chapter 3, which is titled Karma Yoga, the conversation between Krishna and Arjun focuses more or less on karma. About how the chapter 3 opens with Arjun asking Krishna that what is better, karma or gyan, and Krishna says karma, and then he gives the set of reasons. This says that while Krishna is glorifying karma, he is also laying the foundation of gyan. For instance, he right away he tells Arjun that you should do your prescribed duties. So how does one know what is one's prescribed duties? There are two kinds of duties that one person does. One is whimsical duties and other is prescribed duties. So whimsical is what one thinks is the duties, and based on one's own mental conception, the person does the best that they can do. Prescribed duties are ones that are given in the scriptures. So when Krishna says prescribed duties, he is introducing the notion of relationship with the scriptures. You have to study the scriptures to understand what your prescribed duty is. Then following that, Krishna, he speaks about Nishkam Karma Yoga, which is working without any attachment. So we had discussed that how this Nishkam Karma can actually happen when a person understands that he is not the body but the soul. And again, that knowledge of who am I comes from the scriptures. So Krishna again introduces the concept of knowledge. In verse 30, 3.30, he actually very briefly introduces himself also in the landscape, where he says Sarvakarmani, my Sarvakarma. What's the 330? What's the first line? 330? My sarvani karmani sanyasadatma chetesha nirasi nirmamo bhutva yuddhasva viktajara. So he says, do all the work for me. So Krishna then talks about knowledge of himself, and then towards the end Arjun says that if karma is so great, then why do people perform sinful activities? And Krishna says because of lust. And then Arjun says that how does one conquer lust? And Krishna says by knowledge. He says the lust sits in three places: in the senses, in the mind, in the intelligent. More powerful than the senses is the mind. More powerful than the mind is intelligence. So if one through intelligence is able to understand what needs to be done and what not and what should not be done, the person can conquer this. Krishna calls this all-devouring enemy of lust. So we see that while Krishna is glorifying karma, he is also laying the foundation of gyan. So chapter 4 opens without, this is one of the chapters that opens without Arjun asking a question. So out of the 18 chapters, 9 chapters open with a question from Arjun, and the other 9 chapters are continuation of the discussion that Krishna was having with respect to the previous question that Arjun had asked. So Krishna starts the 4th chapter by glorifying Bhagavad Gita. And apparently it seems a little bit of a detour, but if you see the undercurrent that Krishna has been talking about gyan, now he comes in the forefront and talks about the importance of knowledge. So the first thing that Krishna speaks about is where to get this knowledge from. Because one of the things with knowledge is that it is abundantly available. Some of it is real knowledge and some of it is misdirection. So especially in the current day of internet, we know that very well. That for anything that you ask, you'll always get some answer. It may not be the right answer, it may not be the best answer, but you always get some answer. Anything that I once tried this, anything you type in Google, it will always give you an answer. Something it will always give you. It will never say, not been able to find. And whether the answer is appropriate or not, it's, what do they say, viewer discretion or reader discretion advised. So the Krishna starts off by saying that he says, Imam Vivasvati Yogam Proktavanam Avyavyan Vivasvan Manave Praha Manurikshavake Abraved. He says, this knowledge that I'm giving you, this is not a new age knowledge. It's not that we're standing on this battlefront and you're being bewildered, and so I'm telling you something that is very, very circumstantial, but actually the knowledge that I'm giving you is timeless and eternal. He says this knowledge was given by me to Imam Vivasvati, to Vivaswan, sun god. And Prabhupada in the purport says that, based on the calculation of different yugas, the understanding is this knowledge was given 200 million years ago. And even then, it was not that it was being given for the first time. So the knowledge is actually eternal. So another reason Krishna wants to emphasize that Arjuna develops faith and knowledge that Krishna is giving is because from this stage onwards, Krishna is going to tell Arjuna more things that require him to accept it on faith. So when we accept knowledge, we can accept it one of three ways. We can accept it empirically, we can accept it inductively, or we can accept it on faith. So empirically is pratyaksh praman, that somebody, you tell somebody that this is hot, and the person touches it and says, yes, this is hot. So that is pratyaksh praman. Anuman is inductive, that you tell something, this is hot and this is very hot. So the person does not touch the very hot because inductively he understands that these things are going from warm to hot. And Shad Praman is that based on the faith of the word and the speaker, the person accepts it as the absolute truth. So if you see in 3rd chapter, Krishna uses a lot of commonplace analogies to make the point. He uses a lot of empirical evidence to convince Arjuna. He'll continue to do that, but as he goes more and more deeper into spiritual knowledge, he will say things that Arjuna should accept on a platform of faith. So in order to do that, he wants to make sure that Arjuna has faith on what is being spoken to him and also on who's speaking to him. So in the first 5 verses, Krishna glorifies Bhagavad Gita. He says that this was studied by the great Raj Rishis, there was an unbroken disciplic succession, and because this knowledge is so important that over time, since the disciplic succession was broken, I'm personally coming over here and giving it to you. After that, Krishna speaks a little bit about the glories of the speaker, which is Krishna himself. And to some extent, Krishna also speaks that because Arjuna questions Krishna's credentials, so to speak. Krishna says that I spoke this to Sun God, and Arjuna says that you and I are of the same age, and Sun God is ancient. So how can I understand that you spoke it to Sun God? So Krishna could see that Arjuna had developed some doubts about the credibility of his own statement. So Krishna takes a small detour. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna doesn't really speak about himself until the 7th chapter. So in the 7th chapter, Knowledge of the Absolute, he starts really speaking about God or Krishna. But at this point, in order to address Arjuna's immediate doubt, he speaks of maybe 4 or 5 verses about himself. And these verses are famous verses, and he says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhakti bharata, and then, paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya duskritam. So he says that even though you may think that I am of your age, but actually I never take birth and I never die. He says, many, many births you have gone through, you have forgotten, I remember all of them. So he talks about the fact that how he is eternal. And he's also addressing the doubts that people may have that the Krishna who is standing in front of Arjun and speaking the Bhagavad Gita is a manifestation of the material energy. So many times people think that just like I am born, Krishna was born to Devaki and Vasudeva. Just like I grow old, Krishna grew old. Just like Krishna married a lot more, but just like I married, Krishna married and he had children, and just like I died, Krishna died. So what's the difference between him and I? Maybe he was a great person, maybe he was a philosopher, but the world is full of great people, the world is full of philosophers. So what is it that makes Krishna unique? And Krishna wants to set that doubt to rest. Later on he will do it more conclusively. In the 11th chapter when he shows his universal form, and in the 7th, 8th and 9th chapter when he talks about the glories of the Lord. But at this point he wants to establish Arjun's faith in both the word that he is speaking and he himself. Now Krishna is also cognizant of the fact that he wants to introduce Arjun to the concept of knowledge. So knowledge is a two-edged sword. At least the way that Krishna is going to present it to Arjun. So the sword of knowledge at one end will cut Arjun's material attachments, and at the other end will strengthen his spiritual attachments. So from verses 5 to 10, Krishna speaks about himself to develop this sense of spiritual attachment to the personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada says that when one knows how great God is, one will automatically serve him. That follows automatically. But just knowing, it's like sometimes when we meet a stranger, we may not really have any rasa. But when we know the stranger, the person is not a stranger anymore, and we see good qualities in the person, then affection automatically comes in. We don't have to strive for it separately. So this knowledge about the greatness of Krishna automatically inspires spiritual attachment. At the same time, Krishna wants to give Arjun the knowledge to develop material detachment. So who does Krishna use as an example for material detachment? Say that again? No, not at this stage. Krishna uses himself. He basically talks about how he is involved in doing so many things. He says he's coming yuge, ages after ages he's coming, and you look at Krishna's schedule, it's so busy. He comes, he kills demons, he protects his devotees, and then Arjun might say that, but it's like once in a yuga is a long time. And then Krishna says, 4:11, he says, Yathamam prapadyante tam tate bhajamyam. He says, at every moment of time, I am reciprocating to everybody. So now can you imagine the amount of work that Krishna has to do? It's said that psychologists say that in our life, an average person can maintain up till 7 relationships with certain level of depth. We can have several superficial relationships, but 7 relationships in which we are emotionally invested. And after that it starts becoming too much. But Krishna, he has a relationship with each and every living entity. There are infinite number of living entities, and each one of them has a relationship with Krishna. And Krishna, ye yatha mam prapadyante tam sate bhajamyam mam martumanu martante. So he's saying for each one of them I am reciprocating in the way that they want. So then Arjun might say, but not a lot of people are really interested in you, Krishna. Because what are the majority of the people doing? They are basically running after material things, or they're worshipping the devas. And then Krishna says, whether they come to me directly or indirectly, ultimately they're all coming to me. So he's basically, in a way, he's showing his portfolio to Arjun. This is the amount of work that I am doing. And then he says, not only that, there's something else that I also did. This is Chaturvarnya Maya Seshta Guna Karma Vibhagasha. That this 4 division in the society is based on gun and karma, based on qualities and activities, has been done by me. But he says that under all circumstances, I am unchanged, and I am. He says that I am unchanged and
non-doer.
And I am the non-doer. Thank you. That's 413, right? He says I am unchanged. I am the non-doer. So Krishna introduces Arjuna to 2 very important concepts. One is being unchanged. So how does one change as a result of activities? So I do some activity, I get some money, I am richer. Or I do some activity and I lose money, I am poorer. Or I do something and I get some glory, so I am famous, or I am infamous. So as long as we are consuming the results of the activities, we will be constantly changing. As long as we are doing activities with the sense that we are the enjoyer, we will constantly be changed. So that's why Krishna is saying I am unchanged, because he says I have nothing to do with the results of these activities. So this Chaturvarnyam that I have created, I don't force anybody to take this Chaturvarnyam. I don't care if somebody becomes a Brahman or a Shudra. And I don't care what they do when they have taken that. I also don't care what is the results that they're getting out of it. Some of them are performing pious activities and they're rising up. They may go to Svargalok or to even higher lokas, and some of them perform sinful activities and they fall to lower planetary systems. But he says, I am avyayam, I am unchangeable. And the second thing he says that I am the non-doer, which means that he is not attached to the activity itself. So not only is he not attached to the fruits of the activity, he is not attached to the activity itself. So in doing so, Krishna has laid the foundation of what is Nishkam Karma. That if you are unattached to the fruits of the activity, and if you are unattached to the activity per se, then you are at the platform of Nishkam Karma. So in this way, Krishna, he introduces Arjuna to the concept of working without attachment. And in verses 15 to in verses 16 to 24, Krishna now he goes ahead and introduces the topic that he really wanted Arjuna to understand, which is Gyan. So he has introduced Arjuna so far to Bhagavad Gita. He has introduced Arjuna to spiritual knowledge about himself, and using that momentum, he continued to use his own example and introduced Arjuna to the concept of Nishkam Karma. Now you can see that through one thing Krishna is achieving many. Not only is he introducing a tattva, which is he is introducing an important philosophical aspect, he is also increasing Arjuna's and our attachment to Krishna. So he is accomplishing both of them at the same time by using himself as an example to show that how all these things are exemplified by me. We are getting a glimpse about the greatness of Krishna. So when Krishna starts speaking to Arjuna about knowledge, so then he walks a fairly and we spend some time on it, a fairly philosophically complex chain of verses. But essentially what he says is, he explains that how does karma lead to Gyan. So he tells Arjuna that there are 3 kinds of karma. So does anybody remember the 3 kinds of karma?
Inaction, action, inaction, karma, akarma, vikarma.
Karma, yeah, very good. So he said there are 3 kinds of karma. So one is karma, which is fruitive work, which is work done according to one's prescribed duties, but with a desire to enjoy. Vikarma is sinful activities, which is done against the injunctions of the scriptures. And akarma is nishkam karma, which is done without any desires to enjoy the fruits. So he says, vikarma, don't even think about doing it. You'll be in big trouble. So he says, don't do vikarma. Now, karma, one might think is good, but at the end of the day, like Prabhupada says, all karma is bad. Because even with karma, even if you do pious activities, it will continue to bind you to the cycle of birth and death. That as you do more and more pious activities, you will have more and more opportunities to enjoy, but in the material world. So you will be forced to take birth again and again, simply to expunge the pious credit that you have. And the nature of the material world is that whether you like it or not, vikarma happens. Like it said that every time you cook, there are so many living entities that are killed. Every time you do any activity, every time you step out of your house, you drink a glass of water. So just by breathing and living, we are committing violence to so many living entities. So the nature of the material world is that whether we like it or not, vikarma will happen. So Krishna wants Arjuna to understand and follow the path of akarma. So the chain that he draws is that when a person becomes serious about making spiritual advancement, then first what they will do is karma. They will say, let me do activities that are not sinful. Let me find out what constitutes as sin and what constitutes as piety. Let me follow the path of piety and avoid the path of sin. So once they start performing activities in this way, they will do what is known as prescribed duties. Now the nature of the scriptures is that the prescribed duties have two things. They have injunctions and they have prohibitions. It's do this and don't do this. Like for the grahastha, the primary injunction is give in charity. What is the primary prohibition for a grahastha? Not to submit to lusty desires. So through this, the life of a grahastha is maintained on the path of piety. But when one does prescribed duties, one automatically develops detachment from the material world. Because in doing the prescribed duties, there are so many prohibitions that are given that force you to control your senses, that force you not to act whimsically. Prabhupada gives a rather simple example that a Brahmin is supposed to get up in the morning and take a bath. Now, a Brahmin will take a bath whether it is hot or cold, whether it is summer or whether it is winter. They will not say that it's too cold and the water is too cold. Of course, now we have hot water showers, but this is more like just from the perspective of Vedic culture. So you automatically develop some detachment from the sense of bodily comfort, that you're submitting to some kind of austerity because you understand that it's your prescribed duty. Similarly, Prabhupada gives the example of a housewife, that a housewife will go into the kitchen and cook even if it is hot, because that's the swadharma. Right? So they will undertake this austerity because they understand that this is the duty that is prescribed. So as one follows this path, this execution of prescribed duties, one develops more and more realizations that how can I not be absorbed in my bodily comforts. So from this comes the first glimpse of Gyan. That why does the Brahman take a bath in the early morning? Why should I not do these activities? Why should I not steal? Why should I not be envious? Why should I give in charity? What do the scriptures say about it? So there is a development of Gyan. The next stage is one starts performing activities on the platform of Gyan. So here Gyan becomes Vigyan. So the difference between Gyan and Vigyan is knowledge, Vigyan is realized knowledge. So as an engineer, you may sit in your class, and there may be a lecture on electricity, and you may learn the formulas about electricity. But then after that, you'll go to the lab, and then you'll make that happen. That's when you see it actually in action, and then the understanding deepens. Gyan becomes Vigyan, and from Vigyan comes Paragyan, comes the knowledge about. So as one develops more realization about one's own body, one's own soul, one will automatically say, there is a soul, who else is there? One starts to develop understanding about Krishna. So this is the path that Krishna, he walks Arjuna down, and this is actually where we ended. So I'll pause over here. It's a little long recap. We're meeting up a couple of weeks. I'll see if there's any questions or comments, and then after that we'll start with the reading. Yes, Ravi.
This chapter started with Krishna giving knowledge on Bhagavad Gita, just to give him that what he is going to tell is important.
Yes.
And knowledge about himself, to trust him on what he is saying.
Uh-huh.
But Nishkam Karma Yoga, after that, because his purpose of this chapter is to give Jnana, so why he thought about Nishkam Karma Yoga here? Because in the third chapter itself he told about the Nishkam.
It's a good question. So Nishkam Karma is the fulcrum between Karma and Gyan. Right? Like I gave you the example, right? That you're doing activities Sakam. Right? And then you're doing activities Sakam, and then they become Nishkam. So what is the transition? Right? See, when you have knowledge, whether you have Atma Gyan or whether you have Paratattva Gyan, whatever that knowledge is, something will transition you. So what Krishna is doing is that he's walking Arjuna down the path that he is familiar with. He's already told him about karma. So he's told him about karma, and then using karma, he's introducing the concept of Gyan. So he introduces Nishkam karma, and then he distills karma out of that, and then he talks about Gyan. Yeah?
In the third chapter itself, Nishkam Karma Yoga is told.
It is. So you'll see a lot of times that Krishna repeats. So he introduces a concept, and then he expands on it. So in the third chapter, very briefly, a few verses only, that talk about Nishkam Karma.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Your quota is done. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Another question is that demigod worship in our scriptures, Prabhu.
Uh-huh.
In today's world, there is so Hinduism is relatively less and other religions are more. So I'm just trying to, I will ask more straightly. In other religions they told it is only one God and they have no information about demigods. So because in the mostly in the world everybody is somewhat religious. They are following some religion.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case they are approaching Krishna even in the impersonal form.
Mm-hmm.
So we are giving personal form of Krishna, impersonal. Along with that, why we are giving demigod worship? Because everybody is directly approaching Krishna, right? Even in impersonal feature in the other religions.
To some extent, it's given because firstly it is there, the devas are there, and secondly also, like Krishna will speak about it in the 7th chapter and the 9th chapter, that that men who are inclined for quick material gains will take to the worship of demigods. So like one thing that I've said is that the nature of Vedic engagement is that it tends to be very universal. It does not want to leave anybody behind. So the matter of fact is that most of the people are materially inclined. Most of the people are looking for quick material gratification. That whether it's tomorrow or next year, may I have a bigger house, may I have a better car, a better job, may my child get married, my health improve. So everybody is looking for quick material gains. And the nature of devas is that they satisfy those kinds of requirements. But Krishna says that alpamedishu, that people of limited intelligence worship the demigods because whatever they give is temporary, and because it's material in nature. But at the same time, demigod worship can also lead to Krishna worship, because if there is a sincere worshipper of a deva, then they will inquire that who does the deva worship, and they will naturally want to follow in the footsteps. So you see many great devotees who have Ishtadev, who's a demigod, right? It's like Garg Muni, who is a pure devotee of Krishna. His Ishtadev is Lord Shiva, right? But they worship in the right conception. So they don't worship Lord Shiva for whatever, for a good wife or for opulence, etc. They worship Lord Shiva that may you increase my faith in Krishna. And also, by nature, demigod worship at least makes one stay on the path of piety. Right? Because there are no demigods who say that you do sinful activities, right? They're at least keeping you on the path of piety. So that's the nature of the Vedas, that they try to cast a wide net and include as many people as possible, with the understanding that they will gradually develop towards love of Krishna.
So like in the other religions, like we say, due to lack of demigods in the other religions, maybe some people, they may be namesake Christians. If they are not inclined to the Supreme Personality, then they will become gross material. That could be the reason in today's world we see a lot of materialists.
It could be. Also, if you go, so there's demigods everywhere, right? Even Christianity and Islam, they have this notion of Christ is not God, right? Christ is Son of God, right? But he's a pure devotee in the sense that he leads you to. He does not say that you surrender to me, I'll give you a big car. He leads you to God. But if you see, there used to be a Bible study group at work, and I attended that a few times, and you could see that the main focus there was that there used to be, I think he was a lay priest, or maybe he was an ordained one, not sure, but he would come and then he would read a little bit of the Bible, and then he would say, "What's troubling you? What's troubling you? What's troubling you?" So everybody would say something, and then he would say, "All of you hold hands," and then he would lead some prayers, and then he would say that, "May this get better, may this get better, may this get better," and we pray for the grace of Christ to make healthy, wealthy, whatever it was. So regardless of, it's the intrinsic nature of a conditioned soul. So regardless of how you position the philosophy, it is, I mean, look at it yourself also, or ourselves also, right? We are all looking for immediate material gains, right? If there was another room and the person was sitting over there saying that, you come to me and I will give you $1 million, there'll be nobody sitting in this room, right? Everybody will go to that room. If somebody says, guarantee, you come to me, I'll give you $1 million, before I can say Hare Krishna, even I'll be there in that room, right? That's the nature of the material world. We are conditioned souls. So we are all looking for, if we were not, we would not be in this material world. We will be back in the spiritual world, right? So that is why Krishna, he extends himself in a very subtle way, right? And then that's how he draws us in. He doesn't want to cut us off. That either you're a pure devotee or you're a rascal. He doesn't want to make it like that. Yeah?
So even in other religions, some kind of demigod worship is
Demigod worship or material worship.
material.
Worshipping for material things. Yeah, same thing there.
Thank you.
What I understood is demigod is the super soul. Every soul is connected to that, and maybe we say like in different names, but that represents in the things and what they are in our imagination. Everybody has their own imagination and they imagine something different in God. So I don't know if I'm in the right direction or wrong.
In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a more elaborate description given that the devas, they are jivas like us, but they are more exalted beings who like you have like we are in DC, so you have a government, right? And there's a president and there is a vice president. So there are different people who have different positions that are that they are qualified, hopefully qualified to sit in and do. So similarly, the demigods are like positions. So like Indra is a position, and a different jiva sits in it at different points of time. So through the dint of pious activities, a jiva can, if he has the desire, can sit in the position of Indra. But because essentially a jiva will take birth and then will die, right? So when the particular like right now the person who's sitting in the position of Indra is called Purandar. So when his lifetime is open, he dies, then the next Indra, Bali Maharaj, will come and sit in their post. But they are empowered by Krishna to manage the material affairs in the universe, right? So because they are exalted, they are devotees of Krishna, so they are empowered by Krishna to manage the material affairs. Like Indra is in charge of rain and wind, and Lord Ganesh is in charge of different things. And because they are empowered, they can also give benediction. Especially like in India, if you go to a senior government servant, then he can do stuff for you, right? He can say, okay, your file is now quickly it will go, or he'll say this fine is waived off. So because they're empowered, they can do. Similarly, the demigods, they can give benedictions, they can also give curses, they can help. So by dint of the position that they have got, they can help or harm the jiva. Is that okay? Anything else? So we'll continue our study from. So even though we did verse 24, we'll read it again, just because it's a transitionary verse. Not 24. We'll start from 25. So we are reading chapter 4, verse 25. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer. No, just a minute. I'm sorry. We'll actually do 24. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute, and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So Krishna at this point, so he's using metaphors. So he presents Gyan as Yajna. So in Yajna, there are 4 things. There is a person who is performing, who is the judgman, so to speak, who is the performer of the Yajna. In this case, it is the jiva, it is us. There is the offering into the fire of the Yajna. In this case, this is the nishkam karma that is being performed. There is a benefactor, the person who receives the offering. In this case, it is Krishna, and then there is a falstuti, that what is the benediction that is given, and the benediction that Krishna gives is that one makes spiritual advancement. So he says that the performance of that by the interaction of these four aspects, the performer, the activity, the receiver, and the reciprocation, when it is done properly, one makes spiritual progress. Now in the next set of verses, Krishna will use this to talk about 6 different kinds of yagyas. So he'll talk about 6 yagyas that come in 4 categories. So we'll read through the verses. So verse 25, some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. So he talks about 2 kinds of yagyas here. The first one is sakam karma. So what are the kind of people who worship demigods? We just had a discussion about it. There people who are looking for quick material gains. So the first yagya is sakam karma. The second is Gyan yoga. So Supreme Brahman, and this time Krishna just introduces it, so we won't speak too much about it, but the path of attainment of the impersonal Brahman is through Gyan. So he's talking about the second kind of yagya, which is Gyan yoga over here. Next verse. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the object of the senses in the fire of the senses. So again he's talking about 2 kinds of yagyas. The first is the unadulterated brahmacharis. So this is again Gyan. So what is it that the brahmacharis do? They study. They study the scriptures. So how do they study the scriptures? They hear about it from their spiritual master. So that's why Krishna says that they sacrifice the hearing process. So actually when I was reading it, I was thinking the word sacrificing the hearing process is so apt, because I remember when we used to be in school, then actually, at least when I was in school, our school used to be from 8 o'clock till about 3 o'clock. And from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, you would just sit and hear. The teacher would come, and so it was really a big sacrifice. You had to just sit and hear, the physics, chemistry, they would all come and speak. There were no computers at that time. You had to take notes on your own, and of course you got knowledge through it. But it actually, you're actually submitting through your oral reception to the knowledge that you're getting. So this is Gyan. Then the second is the regulated householders. So householders by nature are very materially inclined. So that's the nature of grahastha, right? The word grahastha means alligator. So grahastha means one who has been caught in the jaws of this material alligator. Because for grahasthas there are so many things that are tying them to the material world. They have children, they have a job, they have parents to support, and in our Varnashram dharma, the grahasthas are the only varna that are supposed to engage in any kind of work. So they are supposed to support the brahmacharis, the sannyasis, and the vanaprasthas. So for the grahasthas, because they are so much involved in engaging the senses with the object of the senses, the biggest sacrifice for them is to control the senses. The opportunities for sense enjoyment are so strongly there that the biggest sacrifice for the grahastha is to say that somehow or else I should control senses. In a more contemporary environment, it means that rather than spending all their earnings on themselves, they give in charity. Rather than using all their times for themselves and enjoying, they do some charitable work, they do some voluntary work. So this whole notion of charity through dravya or charity through shram. That is the regulation that is prescribed to the grahasthas. So this comes in the category of karma yagya. So Krishna has talked about 4 yagyas so far, 2 of them in karma and 2 of them in category of jnana. Next verse 27. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath and oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. So this is in the category of karma, but a more advanced category. So the earlier 2 categories was controlling the senses from engaging with the object of the senses. This is one who is more advanced and is able to control the desires. So the person becomes actually free of desires. So one thing is that you see a gulab jamun and you don't eat it. So you like the gulab jamun, but you say, no, I should not eat it. And by dint of self-control, you don't eat the gulab jamun. The second is that you see the gulab jamun and it doesn't make a difference. It's just something that is there. So the first one is called a sadhaka, and this one is called a siddha. The first one is practicing, and this one is perfecting in that area. But this is also in the category of karma. Verse 28. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possession, others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. So here Krishna is giving the 4 kind of sacrifices that he is. So like I said, he spoke about 6 types of yagyas in 4 categories. So here he talks about these, what are the 4 categories. So the first one is sacrificing their possessions. So this is Drava Yagya. So this was the category of the householders who sacrificed their possessions. Others by performing severe austerities. So this is Tapo Yagya. So this is the last verse. The person who is free from the pushings of the various desires. The third is by practicing the eightfold yoga of mysticism. So this is Astanga Yoga, Krishna speaks about in the next verse. And at this point it's classified as Gyan, even though it's a different category, because just like there is a junction between Karma and Gyan, there is also a junction between Gyan and Astanga Yoga. So because Krishna hasn't spoken about Astanga specifically, understanding is that he's speaking more so about how at some point Gyan becomes Astanga Yoga. And the fourth is by studying the Vedas, which is Gyan Yoga. Right? So Krishna speaks about the 4 kinds of yogas. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others curtailing the eating process, offering the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. So Krishna gives a very, very high level brief description of Astanga Yoga. So Astanga Yoga, as we know, is the eightfold steps of Yam, Niyam, Hatha Yoga, Pranayam, Samadhi. It ends in Samadhi. So Krishna gives a very, very high level description, and he does that. He plants the seed of a particular concept in Arjuna's mind, and then he speaks about it later. So in the 6th chapter, Krishna will speak extensively about Astanga Yoga, but right now he just introduced him that there are some people who are inclined to these kinds of activities. So in the next set of verses, so Krishna has given, now these are by no means comprehensive. There are many kinds of yagyas. So Krishna has given a glimpse of the common prevalent yagyas that Arjun or we may come across. People who are practicing karma yoga, people who are practicing Gyan Yoga. We also see people who are to some extent practicing some form of Astanga Yoga. At least they do the Hatha Yoga. So he's giving Arjuna a brief glimpse of the different sacrifices. Now in the next set of verses,
So, can you like little bit more on that Astanga Yoga?
little bit more on Astanga. So Astanga Yoga is I guess in the yoga ladder, it is the next stage. Like after Karma Gyan comes, after Gyan, Astanga comes. So Astanga is explained in Patanjali Sutras, and it starts off with Yam and Niyam. So Yam is what you Niyam is what you need to do, and Yam is what you should not do. So the Yam and the Niyam, this is the transition point from Gyan to Astanga. So by practicing Gyan, one gets control on the senses. When one gets control on the senses, one is able to follow the Yams and the Niyams. Like in Astanga Yoga, there is lot of there is a lot of emphasis on what you eat, how much you sleep, how much you breathe. Now, for a person who is materially absorbed, very difficult to do that. But one who is anchored on the platform of Gyan and who has developed that detachment from the senses can submit to the rules and regulations. And the ultimate purpose of Astanga Yoga is to separate the soul from the body and to surrender to the Supreme. So the difference between Astanga Yoga and let's say Bhakti Yoga is that Astanga Yoga is a mechanical process. That the practitioner or the yogi does it on his or her own strength. And that is why the process tends to be very, very long and very tedious. Right? You think of it this way, that you're trying to learn a language. Right? You can go to school and learn it. If you have a good instructor, you can learn it fairly quickly. Or you say that I'll learn it by myself, you can still learn it. It'll take a long time and a lot of effort. So that is the nature of Astanga Yoga, that people practice it for literally thousands and thousands of years, and ultimately they reach a point where they still have to take mercy, but they reach a point that is very exalted by this long practice of Astanga Yoga. And like I said, in the 6th chapter, Krishna will actually talk in fair bit of details about Astanga Yoga. Is it okay? Any other questions? So from the verse 30, Krishna begins to glorify sacrifice. He says, all those performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifice, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. So Krishna is trying to instill in Arjuna the need to perform yajna. And you notice that he gave karma yoga and jnana yoga, right? So he is not deprecating one with respect to the other. Right? He is not saying that these people who follow karma yoga are losers and jnana yoga are good people. He is glorifying all of them. Because if the process of yoga is sincerely followed, they will automatically lead a person to successively high levels of realization. And in that he is also trying to develop in our hearts this resolve that we need to do something that is more than our mundane existence. At a different point in the scripture that is said that one who just simply lives to do 4 things, which is eating, drinking, mating and eating, sleeping, mating and defending. Right, so one basically is making engagements to eat palatable food, or one is looking for association with the opposite sex, or looking to have sleeping as restful life, or defending is after I have made my castle, make sure that nobody enters my castle. Says he's no different from a where's Somu Prabhu? He's no different from a Dvija, from a Dvijapad Pashu. He's no different from a two-legged. No. So that is why Krishna is saying, don't be a two-legged animal. He's instilling this kind of this desire in Arjun to perform yajna, whether it is karma yajna or jnana yajna or astanga yajna. He's instilling the desire in Arjun by glorifying the process of yajna and where it leads also. Verse 31, O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? So somebody might say that all this yajna business is fine, but what about my next paycheck? Or what about my health? And Krishna is saying, don't worry, it will take care of that also. So it is something that will take care of your desires or your needs in this life and also in your next life. 32. All these different types of sacrifices are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. So Arjun might ask that you have told me different kinds of, you've given me 6 different kinds of sacrifices. Which one should I perform? And Krishna says they're all good. And the reason that they are there is because he says that they are born of different types of work, which is another way of saying is that they come from different propensities. There are certain people who are naturally inclined towards the study of the scriptures. There are some people who are naturally inclined towards working, and through that they can acquire perfection. So one does not have to give one's own intrinsic nature. One just has to find where to engage in the scriptures according to their intrinsic natures. Next verse. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So this is something that Krishna does, and you'll see in scriptures also, that right after they say that it's all the same, they'll say one is better than the other. So just 2 verses earlier, Krishna said they're all the same. Now he's saying, but Gyan is better than karma. And the Acharya explained that both the statements are correct. Like karma and Gyan are the same because karma leads to Gyan. So the example is given of a mango that is ripe and unripe. Both are mangoes. An unripe mango over a period of time becomes a ripe mango. But at the same time, a ripe mango is better than unripe mango because it is sweeter. So in the same way, karma and Gyan are the same because karma becomes Gyan. But Gyan is better because karma culminates into Gyan. Verse 34, so this is one of the famous verses in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena seveya ubdakshanti te jnanam jnaninam tattva darshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So it's interesting that after Krishna has glorified knowledge, he does not direct Arjun towards the Vedas. He directs Arjun towards a spiritual master. So you would expect Krishna, so I'm sitting with you and I'm saying there is this wonderful knowledge about how to convert bell metal into gold. And this is what you can do. You can use mercury, you can do this, and this is how bell metal will become gold. And there are further several details to it. So the natural question will be that where can I find the details? Which book has it? Right? But Krishna does not give that book. All that he says is that you approach a spiritual master. So this is one of the important tenets of spirituality, at least spiritual knowledge, is that one does not approach the Vedas directly. One approaches it through a guru, and the reason Krishna says is, he says that he says Jnani nas tattva darshana, that somebody who has understood the intricacies of the Vedas only can explain to you. On your own, the Vedas will bewilder you. There are so many parts of the Vedas, there are so many interpretations of the Vedas, and the Vedas speak about so many situations. So if on your own you are going to be approaching the Vedas, you will always be misdirected. Many times people say that we have a guru, and Prabhupada would say is, when you have a guru, you should say, it should mean that you have a living guru with whom you have a active relationship. You cannot say that I accept Krishna as my guru. Krishna is everybody's guru. But you have an active relationship with Krishna. Do you go to Krishna and ask him questions and does he give you answers? Most of us are not at that stage. Or somebody will say, I have a guru from the 15th century. I consider that person to be my guru. But is that person going to be answering your question that are relevant to your time, place and circumstance? That what do I do when I have to work late at night because I have a call with the India office, but I cannot chant my rounds in the morning? Right? So these are very specific questions that are there, which the Guru can answer to you because he understands the Vedas and also he understands your situation. So having an active relationship with a living Guru is very, very important. So Krishna has glorified knowledge. He has glorified how knowledge can take one to spiritual perfection. Now he is saying that knowledge is best obtained through a guru who himself has tattva darshana. So not that you take any person as a guru, but one who is himself connected in the disciplic succession, who himself has a guru, who has himself sat at the feet of his guru and understood the tattva from him, and is therefore the transparent via media. Prabhupada say that guru is like glasses. They correct your vision, but they are transparent. So the guru explains to you things that they are without imposing any of his own mental concoction. And in this verse, Krishna also talks about what is the right way to approach a guru. So he talks about two qualities. So he says that inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. These are the two things that a disciple should follow when approaching a guru. So submissively is important because the opposite of submissively is challengingly. So because the guru is giving you knowledge, that is not empirically verifiable. When the guru says that Krishna is God, then you can say, show me Krishna. And if you can't show me Krishna, you're not guru anymore. I remember a couple of years ago on the 4th of July, we had set up this booth over there. We were giving out books, and Jayadvaita Swami was sitting there. So he was dressed in saffron. He's a sannyasi. And then a person came by, it was an Indian person, and he said, are you a guru? And Jayadvaita Swami is actually initiating guru. He said, yes, I'm a guru. So then he closes his eyes and he says, what number have I thought? So Maharaj said, I don't know what number you thought. He said, how can you call yourself a guru? And Maharaj said, I call myself a guru because I have been given that service by my guru to teach people the science of Krishna consciousness. And then the person said something more not very complimentary, and then he went away. And then when I was witnessing that, and I was thinking about this verse, that as long as you approach the guru in a challenging mode, then the knowledge that the guru wants to give you automatically gets withdrawn. You will never have access to the knowledge far less the mercy of the Guru. And the second thing is that one should inquire. So that is the main relationship between a disciple and a spiritual master. That a disciple should inquire and a spiritual master should respond to that inquiry. So it is said the inquiries are in three modes. So there are inquiries that are done to show the spiritual master down. They are in the mode of ignorance. There are inquiries that are done to show the inquirer in a better light. Like some people will ask like really far out question that what happens when when this happens? Why is Krishna blue in color? Why does he have a peacock fan? And have you ever seen Krishna? So so they ask questions to basically show their own intelligence. So the inquiry is in the mode of passion, and there is inquiry that is meant for enlightenment. That they ask a question so that it helps them make advancement. There are inquiries in the mode of goodness, and then there are inquiries that the disciple does to strengthen the relationship with Krishna. So they are in the mode of Shuddha Sattva. So part of Sattva in the mode of Shuddha Sattva. In earlier on in ISKCON they used to have this term called Stump the Swami. That stump the Swami. That people would be somebody would be giving a class, and then somebody would say but it is said that the Virat Purushes, the rivers are the veins of the Virat Purush. How can we understand that Ganga is any different when Ganga comes from the foot, and how can the foot be the vein? So somebody will ask this question. So the person will like I don't know. As disciples, our mood should be that is this question going to help me make spiritual advancement? Is it going to clarify a doubt that will enhance my progress on the path of spirituality? And then automatically the relationship with the spiritual master becomes strong and nurturing. Because the instructions of the spiritual master also carry the mercy of the spiritual master. When the Guru asks the disciple to do something, then at the same time he empowers the disciple also to do that. When Srila Prabhupada came to the US, then three couples, they were brand new, just about maybe they had been practicing Krishna consciousness for about a year or so, and that also kind of. And Prabhupada said that you go to London and establish a temple over there. Now, and they were all poor, they had no money at the time. So now, can you imagine, if supposing somebody told me go to London and establish a temple, I know nothing about London. I have no money, so to speak, if I was them. And the six of them went, and not only did they establish a temple over there, they actually established a very strong foundation for Krishna consciousness to grow over there, which is flourishing even now. And when you talk to them, they said, we have no idea how we did it. We had little understanding of the philosophy. We had, they were all young, in the 20s, newly married, and one of them was even not very sure, had doubts about it. But despite all that, so the only way we can understand that it happened was because when Swamiji gave us the instruction, he also empowered us to do that. So this is a verse in the 4th chapter that needs to be memorized. Tadvidi pripatena pariprashnena sevya. Questions, comments? Question in the mode of goodness?
The way I understood, I want to share. So the knowledge, like if I need to make somebody understand that how computer works, who even doesn't know how the mathematics of everything, I need to tell him everything, like how number system works, then the science, then the diodes, then how the motherboard connected, how the hardware, then software, how then we see the screen. Same way the knowledge we are getting from the Gita, if we inquiry them, then it will take maybe many ages to even get the part of it. So taking it as it is how that is designed to each other's. That is how like we should accept it. Rather than if you inquire it, we need many more lives to even get a part of it.
Yeah, that's a good way of presenting it. Yeah. Piano?
So we are all part and parcels of the Supreme Lord, right? So when we come into the material world, why has the Supreme Lord, in ways of deciding, why has He made us forget it? And then we are trying to relearn the concept, reading the scriptures, relearn the ideas and the truths by reading the scriptures, by inquiring from gurus.
It's a good question. So a lot of times we use terms that are more conventional. So like when we say that you're learning, we use conventional, that you're learning something new. Actually, the process of spiritual knowledge is not learning but remembering. Once when Prabhupada was, I think it was in England, and a reporter came to him and said, "Swamiji, you have come to England, what are you coming to teach us?" And he said, "I'm not come here to teach you anything, I've come here to remind you of that which you have forgotten." So the nature of the soul is that it is Sat Chit and Anand, full of knowledge. The soul intrinsically knows everything. It knows it knows Krishna, it knows all the tattvas there. But the part of the deal that we worked out with Krishna when we came to the material world is that we asked for this forgetfulness.
So we volunteered for this experience.
We volunteered for it.
This experience, and we have forgotten as a result of volunteering what our original position is.
Yes.
And then we are re-remembering or relearning it.
We are unforgetting now, so to speak. Yeah, because our original deal with Krishna was that we want to enjoy separate from you, right? And as long as you have the remembrance, not possible to enjoy. So as part of that deal, Krishna said that so this is the nature of Maya. So it covers you, and it makes you forget. It makes you forget about who you are. It makes you forget about who Krishna is, and what your relationship is. So it's not that Krishna makes us forget, it's that we ask to enjoy separately for Krishna, and as part of that, we asked to be given this forgetfulness, so that our enjoyment could be more complete. If you look at it from the flip side, is that the so-called the engagement with material attraction, it diminishes as your spiritual knowledge grows. Right? So it is basically reversing that which we volunteered for. Is that okay? Okay. Questions? Any other questions? Okay. Next verse. Verse. So verse 35. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion, for by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are just part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. So the next set of verses, Krishna glorifies the result of this knowledge. So this verse talks about Sambandh Gyan. It says that once you get this knowledge, you get an understanding of a relationship between the Jiva and Krishna. And I think Pyali's question was very appropriate, because she said we are part and parcel, and that's what Krishna is saying, that all living beings are but part of the Supreme. So when you get this understanding that qualitatively you are the same as Krishna, quantitatively you are infinitesimal. So So what is this knowledge giving you? In this verse, Sambandh Gyan. Next verse, even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So this is a vikarmic person, a person who is performing vikarma, lot of sinful activities. Krishna is saying you will get protection from vikarma. So that is the second advantage of Gyan, that it will protect you from performing sinful activities. Verse 37, as a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjun, so does the fire of knowledge turn into ashes all reactions to material activities. So previous verses were activities that you're performing. This verse is activities that you performed in the past. He's saying knowledge is so powerful, not only will it protect you from vikarma, it will also protect you from past karmic reactions. The fourth verse 38, in this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys the knowledge within himself in due course of time. So this is a verse that is talking about Atma Gyan. So you see that Krishna talks about the four results of knowledge. You find out who you are, you find out who Krishna is. So between these two, you are able to establish your relationship with the spiritual world. The other two is you find out your relationship with your past karma, you find out your relationship with the present and future karma. These two knowledge are talking about how you relate to the material world. So this is how knowledge acts. It gives you an understanding of how you are related to the spiritual world, how you are related to the material world. With the knowledge of your understanding with the material world, what happens? You develop material detachment. With the knowledge of the spiritual world, you develop spiritual attachment. So there is a push and there is a pull. You start looking at the material world as a temporary place, not an eternal place of enjoyment, and you start looking at the spiritual world as your ultimate destination. So Krishna in this way he is glorifying knowledge, that it is the complete package. It gives you everything that you need to make advancement. It gives you material detachment, it gives you spiritual attachment. Yeah? Yep, yeah.
Just about one word. Is mature fruit of all mysticism. What does mysticism mean over here?
So mysticism is something that is not phenomenal, that is numinous. So that is not of the world.
That is not, sorry?
Of the world. So something that is not material. So sometimes we consider mysticism as mystic powers or something like that. In this context, mysticism is more so that it is not material, it is spiritual.
Spiritual.
Yes.
4:30 speaks about
So this is Atma Gyan, knowledge of the self. 439. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his sense is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. So this is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. That through the acquisition of the knowledge, one gets material detachment and spiritual attachment. He quickly frees himself from the material world and enters into the spiritual world. 440. So in this verse there are three qualities that
How much is left?
I think I just had three verses. So there are three qualities that Krishna speaks. He speaks about about one who is one who subdues his senses, one who is faithful, and one who is dedicated. So, so Krishna glorifies these three qualities as one that are useful for Gyan. That faithful means Shraddha, one who has faith. Dedicated means that the person is perseveres, because the process of spirituality will undoubtedly be, there will be a lot of reversals, there will be a lot of doubts that will come in, but a dedicated man will persevere. Sometimes you see that a person is performing spirituality and then something happens in the life, something that maybe they lose a loved one, or they lose a job, and then they say, what is the point in all this? There is no Krishna. And then they leave everything. So, but a person who is dedicated perseveres behind all trials and tribulations and subdues his senses, which means that he is practicing what he is understanding. So, this is not something that is for an armchair philosopher, that you just keep reading the Bhagavad Gita over and over again, you memorize all the verses. It's not going to make any change in your life unless you start practicing what Krishna tells you. So Krishna glorifies these three qualities of one who can make advancements. So 40. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness, they fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next world. So these are the qualities that are not conducive to making spiritual advancement. So previous verse he said faith, in this verse he says faithless. So Shraddha is important. One should have some level of faith. If you start doubting everybody, so faith is defined as having confidence in something that is sublime. It's something that you cannot touch and feel, but yet you have confidence in it. So, but a person who is faithless cannot make, nor can the ignorant person. So it's interesting that over here there is one category of person that Krishna is very upset about, and that is the persons who doubt the revealed scriptures. And because in the next verse he says that for the doubting there is no happiness neither in this world nor in the next world. And the reason is that a doubting person knows what needs to be done but does not do it. So the faithless and the ignorant person, they are Krishna says they are mudhas. They are like animals. They are innocently ignorant. They don't know, and so they don't care, but they are not. So they basically go through the cycle of karma. But a doubting person, so doubt means, when does doubt come? When you read, right? When you start inquiring, that's when doubt comes. Now doubt in itself is not a bad thing, because the whole relationship with the spiritual master is based on questions, and questions are symptoms of doubts, right? So doubt in itself is not a bad thing, but a person who surrenders to those doubts, who basically then says, I really don't know what the scriptures say, but this one says that Shiva is God, this one says that Parvati is supreme, this one says that Ganesh is there, so best for me to do is in the morning I'll do a little bit of this puja, in the afternoon I'll do that puja. I'm not really sure what to do, so maybe I'll do this mantra also. So that's the nature of a doubting person. And Krishna says that such a person, not only in this life but also in the next life, because the next life is predicated on the activities that you do in this life. So in a way, Krishna is saying that your activities will be so devoid of any material or spiritual benefit that you will also fall in the next life. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his action, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work O conqueror of riches. So this verse is a summary of the entire chapter. This verse contains the path that Krishna has laid down in the chapter. So he says, so what did Krishna first talk about was Nishkam Karma. So if he says, renouncing the fruits of the actions. So that is one who has engaged in Nishkam Karma. The next is whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge. So from Nishkam Karma, the person has gone to Gyan, right? And is situated factually in the self. From Gyan it has gone into Vigyan. So this was the path that Krishna laid out for advancement. That from Sakam Karma you go to Nishkam Karma, from Nishkam Karma you go to Gyan, and then from Gyan you go into making spiritual advancement. So this verse is a summary of and Krishna does that he'll speak the chapter, he'll summarize it in either one verse or a set of verses. And the last verse is an inducement from Krishna to Arjuna. He says, therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand and fight. So you notice how Krishna is playing with Arjuna also. 2 verses before that he says, Ajyacha Shadadanascha Sanshayatma Vinashati. That he says Sanshayatma Vinashati. That a person who has doubt is destroyed. Now he's telling Arjuna the doubts that have risen in your heart. So you can imagine poor Arjuna's position, right? Just now he has said Sanshayatma Vinashati, and now he's saying all the doubts that are there. So Arjuna will be really keen to expunge those doubts from his heart. And he says that stand and fight. So this is the 3rd time in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna has asked Arjuna to stand and fight. Arjuna does not stand and fight. In the whole Bhagavad Gita, like I said, he asks Arjuna 9 times to stand and fight. Each of the time, Arjuna pretty much ignores it. He doesn't stand up and fight. And only in the 18th chapter, at that time Krishna, he changes his tone. He does not say stand and fight. He says, now you do whatever you like to do. Then Arjuna stands and fights. So I'll stop here. The kids are coming. There's quick. You had a question. It's a quick question.
From my understanding, faith itself looks a good attribute to cultivate. But many times when we discuss with someone talking about spiritual knowledge, it is difficult for me to convince that faith is a good thing, because generally everybody starts with faith itself is a bad